Did you know that this movie almost had a sequel? Hi, I'm Chrissy and I'm the resident Phantom historian. Alright, I'm getting comfy to talk about this because the reason the sequel never happened is kind of complicated. Okay, so Lon Chaney's Phantom was really successful, and Lon Chaney was considered to be the most attractive man in the business by 1928. Right? Carl LaMaille Jr., he really wanted Universal to get into sound productions, and his father really didn't want him to, so he kind of came up with a plan and forced the issue, and his father finally kind of gave in. Basically got a company to loan him some equipment, made a film, released it, it did well, and he was like, see, we can do this. LaRue had been somewhat inspired by the movie and the ending, the way that it differed from his novel, so he had this idea for a sequel. It never went beyond just a couple of paragraphs. Basically, a body would wash up on the set, the Persian would discover it's not Eric like they thought it was. It goes back to Eric's home, he discovers all of his stuff is gone, and Christine and Raul go to Madrid. Of course, Eric follows them there. That is as far as the idea got. There wasn't enough story, really, so they had somebody else working on a script because they wanted to make the sequel. They bought the rights. Noting, they bought the rights from his widow, not from him. He may never have intended for this to actually see the light of day. Chaney was under contract with MGM, and Universal kind of put out this announcement about the Return of the Phantom without actually getting confirmation that Chaney would be allowed to be in it. Chaney did enter into negotiations with Universal to make 3 talking films: Return of the Phantom, a remake of Outside the Law, and Dracula. Jr. was in a race to get to Dracula before MGM. He got the okay from his dad to move forward with it. He made a contract with Chaney, but he started working on it before he actually secured the rights. Slowed down on producing Dracula, and they were like, okay, let's focus on Return of the Phantom instead. But Lon Chaney was ill. Chaney basically disappeared from the public, and Universal was kind of freaking out. They lost several members of their team, so they're like, okay, let's shelve Return of the Phantom. Let's re-release Phantom without Chaney. Wanted to add sound, more color, and dubbed voices, and they were not going to use Lon Chaney in this production. And his lawyer immediately was like, hold up. The only talking picture that Chaney was actually interested in being in was Dracula. So he wasn't going to be in Phantom, but he wasn't going to let them do it without him either. Universal said, hey, let's use a double to film in your place to get all of the footage that we need, and you and I, we will never tell anybody that we used a double for this. They were not allowed to use a double for his voice, and they were allowed to say in advertisements that the Phantom talks, but they were not allowed to say if it was or was not Lon Chaney doing the talking. Universal came up with an idea. Let's use an unseen servant for the Phantom who talks for him, and they made 16 pages of script for this. The release was successful, and it gave Universal the money that they needed to produce Dracula. Lon Chaney made his only talking picture with MGM in April of 1930, and then 4 months later, he passed away. By the time he passed away, they had long shelved the idea of a Phantom sequel in favor of the sound reissue, and that seems to have been the best course of action for them.